Hey everyone, I have a very special guest for you today. We talk to Greg every Monday. We did release a video talking about what if unemployment is truly 30% on Monday. And that sparked a lot of questions. Greg and I looked at him and said, you know what? Let's see if we can't dig into the questions and answer them for you before we talk again next Monday. So Greg, thank you for doing this. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Michael. How about you?
I'm doing very well. I love it when we find a topic that sparks interaction. So
Yeah. Looks like you had a couple of good questions there. So,
yeah. So any of them sort of jump out at you that you want to start with while I scroll through the list?
I don't have them up in front of me.
Oh, no problem.
While you're looking through it, I can speak to one. Somebody commented on the comment I made about a national sales tax, a
Yep.
consumption tax, and
I remember
actually
that
said that I was a bit naive. So,
one. They took a shot at you, man.
yeah, exactly. So it's really funny. But anyways, and naive, when you look at the definition of that, it's uninformed, or basically, saying you're ignorant, don't know what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
what I was talking about was, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm
Yeah.
an efficiency expert. So my business philosophy is to make the most amount of money with the least amount of time, energy, and effort possible.
Mm-hmm.
Solve problems, create opportunities for everybody, right? We've
Yeah.
talked about that in the entrepreneurship episode. So when I look at anything at the macro level, micro level, state, federal, local, whatever it is, I look at, okay, how can we simplify the process?
Yeah.
So our tax code is obviously very outdated.
Mm-hmm.
It favors a select few. It's a tool of power and control by big corporations, and it gives politicians power and control because they can do favors through the tax code. So
Mm-hmm.
it is very inefficient. It's a broken system. It doesn't work. And, a lot of people get in trouble because of the tax code and the way taxes are. So
Mm-hmm.
at a very high level, an easy way to simplify that and to fix it is to start looking at a national sales or consumption tax. This is not a new idea. It's anything I
No.
came up with.
No.
People have been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I did some research on this when I was getting my MBA, so it's at least
mhm.
20 years old. So yeah, it's not
Yeah,
a
and
Greg
there's,
idea.
yeah, and I'm no economist, and but there's very smart people, some of the
Mm.
best minds in the world that have studied this and do study this, and there's pros and cons and debates on each side. So all I'm really saying is we need to simplify the tax code.
Yes.
We need to make it more broad and more fair so that people that are operating under the table, whether they're illegal, and I don't mean immigrants, I just mean being paid cash for their services, operating illegally under the table, pay their fair share.
Mm-hmm.
And, people that don't make enough, like his comment was the middle class gets left out in a fair tax or a consumption tax. You have rebates, you have a rebate system. So there's a lot of ways that it can be made more fair. It can be more broad reaching, and it can work. So that was a very high level comment of, we need to simplify this. And that's one thing that the federal government needs to really look at. And you can't really compare the United States to any other countries, especially a Venezuela. That would be a naive comment. You just can't.
Yeah.
We're the United States of America. We have almost a $30 trillion GDP.
Yep.
Venezuela, you just can't compare. So, and then the second part of his comment was about employees should be entitled to ownership in the companies they work for. That is a very naive statement spoken by somebody who has obviously never started a business, owns a business, or taken a risk to start a business, create opportunity, create jobs for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you have an employee doesn't mean they have a right to ownership in your company. Entrepreneurs go out, take risk. They risk their own capital. They spend time, energy, effort, work their butts off. They're the last ones to get paid. The employees are the first to get paid.
Yep.
And employees get a salary. They get salary. In some companies, they get benefits. That's why they're there. That doesn't entitle anybody to ownership just because you work somewhere. And, the other side of that equation is, that mindset says, hey, I work here. I'm entitled to something. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're entitled to ownership because you work here. Are you entitled to share in the losses when something goes wrong, when the company fails? Are you going to put your house up? Are you going to pay the debts of the company? If you make a mistake, are you going to pay for it?
Mm.
No. Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
But they want
It doesn't go the other way, huh? Darn it.
Exactly. They want ownership. They want entitlement. They want all that. So if you want that, go start a business.
Yeah.
Be an entrepreneur. Go work. Educate yourself. Put your capital at risk and go create jobs for other people.
Yeah.
So be a job creator, not a job taker and an entitlement seeker.
Yeah.
So that's what entrepreneurs do.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me, sort of hitting both those concepts. First off, a flat tax or a consumption tax or whatever you want to call it, Where I go back to is the tax code today is too complex. Complexity opens up what we all now call loopholes, and everybody wants to close a loophole. A loophole gets closed. No, the tax code is so complex. There are so many gray areas. I have an accounting degree and an advanced degree in economics and finance. There are plenty of gray area loopholes out there because the tax code is this thick or
Right.
whatever. That's the problem. So I vote for anything that simplifies it, because once it's simplified and it's, one sheet of paper, you need a lot less accountants, a lot less lawyers, a lot less estate planners, because simple. And it should be simple for everyone. Everybody should play by the same rules. The thing that bothers to me today in the tax code is the ultra rich play by a different set of rules, carry forward losses, and all these other things that they have that you and I will never see, or at least I will never see. Maybe you see them, but most people will never see. So that just bothers me at my core. And then one statement that I totally agree with that I just want to hit again is entrepreneurs are paid last. Exactly. They're paid last. And most entrepreneurs don't succeed, frankly. The failure rate is really high. So the entitlement mindset that I saw in that question was, it's not okay. If you want it,
when a company
go
folds,
yeah,
and the owners lose everything, the employees aren't there paying their fair share. They're not contributing.
No,
they're on to the next job.
Yeah, you close a restaurant. Yes, it sucks that the waiters and the cooks and the hostess all lose their job. That's really bad. But the owner, they probably have years of commitments on that lease that they're on the hook for. They probably have payments left on the equipment that they're going to pay for. They probably have other contracts that they still have to pay, even though they have no revenue. So you're absolutely right. Entrepreneurship.
Take your life savings, take your house, take everything you have, put
your
it
health
on the line for a business. Then tell me who's entitled to what in your business.
Amen.
Once you do that, then
we can talk
to me.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the questions that came up, and we've talked about this a couple of times, is we've talked about real estate opportunities, entrepreneurships, finding businesses that are not, like bakeries and dry cleaners, things that are like localized. Where could somebody go find businesses? Because, there isn't an MLS per se for businesses. Where would somebody even go look for that? Or are there brokers, or how would one go evaluate that stuff?
So some cities and states, well, it's not at the state level, but local association of realtors. So different places have different MLS systems, and there are businesses for sale in some MLS systems.
Okay.
So some areas do use that. There is Biz Buy Sell, which is a part of LoopNet, where you can find businesses that are listed now. Yeah. Business brokers. Okay. So in general, business brokers are very difficult to deal with. They overprice the businesses. And, that can be an inefficient way to find a business, but there are some business brokerage websites where you can see what's there. And the idea is to look at the businesses, see what they're asking, evaluate them. And then you want to deal with the owner. You want to, not cut the broker out. You pay them their commission, but say, look, I like this business. I'm interested. I want to talk directly to the owner.
Yeah.
We'll strike a deal and then we'll pay you your commission, because, they're getting paid by the business owner anyways. So, they can be a problem in the middle of that. Not all of them, but many of them, it's a low barrier to entry business that doesn't require licensure. So a lot of people jump into business brokerage that don't really understand how to make deals happen and the different ways deals can happen.
Right.
So they can get in the way, but anyways, your local MLS can be a resource. Biz Buy Sell has another one. There's a couple of franchise websites out there that list franchises for sale.
Okay.
And then right now, just driving around and looking at closed,
Yeah.
And
big old sign on the window.
Yeah. And just calling the landlord because the space is either going to be for lease or it's going to be, somebody's going to try to turn that space over or try to sell the assets or whatever. So, right now driving around is an easy way to find.
Talk about driving for dollars, right? Yeah.
And then the cool thing about that is you can structure deals in a number of ways. So you don't even need any money to buy a business. You can get into a business by, especially right now, if the business is going out, closed, gone, going out of business, where you could step in, take it over and pay the owner, out of the cash flow of the business that you generate. You can do a deferred down payment. So, let's say you finance it with a bank loan or something, or SBA or something like that, and the owner wants a down payment, you can agree to that and say, look, give me 90 days to pay you out this down payment, or give me 1 year to pay the down payment. So there's a lot of different ways you can structure creatively with business. And, businesses can generate way better returns than real estate. A lot more people these days are getting wealthy through businesses and companies than in real estate, just because the barrier, of entry from a price standpoint.
Right. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about, again, just thinking about those mom and pop businesses driving around. And again, I've never done it, never evaluated. So this is just probably a naive question, but most of them are renting space, right? Most business owners in a strip mall per se, they don't own their section, right? It's not a condo, right? They're signed a 10-year lease or 5-year lease or whatever. And then the equipment that they bring in, typically they own that, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And so that's really what you're buying, that in the customer base, in the infrastructure, all of that. But you probably still have a lease with the commercial owner, I'm guessing. Is that fair?
So the majority of a retail strip center type environment, yeah, those are generally leased. I mean, some people do own the condos, and those centers have been condoed out. That's a great little business model from a developer standpoint. Same thing with office condos, so they can be leased or sold. So yeah, it can go either way. Like we had one that we did down in North Carolina that was a Food Lion shopping center.
Yeah,
main anchor was Food Lion, and then we had a bunch of little other retail centers. We just condoed them out and sold the little spaces.
Interesting.
That was a great little play, just like you could do with an apartment, just like you can do with, a lot of things.
Okay.
Cool. Warehouse, you can do the same thing with a warehouse. Industrial space, you go in, buy a big empty warehouse or big box space, and then carve it up into little spaces and sell them off.
Buy by the foot, sell by the inch. I get it.
Exactly. So that's absolutely doable. But most of them, the majority of them are leased. And then the FF&E in there, furniture, fixtures, and equipment that the owner supplies, anything that's not attached to the space or built in, and even some of it they do build in, they own that, but generally they're not going to take a built-in countertop or built-in, retail sales counter with them. They're going to leave that in there. But the equipment that's movable, they're generally going to either take with them. Sometimes they put that up as a guarantee for the space. So if they leave, it stays with the landlord. So, that can be done in a lot of different ways. And generally the FF&E is worth, pennies on the dollar when, with a retail or a restaurant business.
Okay. Another question, we should just say it, I don't do this enough, but you have a YouTube channel. People are really liking our interviews. So what is the YouTube channel?
Yeah. So it's Greg Dickerson, just
your name.
Greg Dickerson. Google Greg Dickerson real estate or whatever, and it'll come up. There's a sportscaster named Greg Dickerson too. So when you Google that, we're about the only two that pop up.
There you go. And I will once again put it in the first line of the show notes. I do that sometimes. I forget sometimes. So I will do that this time.
Yeah, we get a lot of crossover. I get a lot of people reaching out that are subscribed to your show and they enjoy our discussions and ask questions. That's why I like doing this. Even the negative comments and questions, I still want to address them and just say, hey, here's what we're thinking and what we're looking at, and bring the feedback, positive or negative. And we're not making any political statements or positions. We're just bringing, trying to help people, and bring some high level conversation.
And sometimes we miscommunicate or we don't go deep enough, and it's just an opportunity to try again. I like it. It's fun. So I'm going to read an entire question this time instead of just giving you the concept. So I heard you and Greg, so that's me and you, saying the housing market will never have an issue because of the low interest rates and will keep going up the next few years. Now, this again is back to the 30% unemployment. Now you guys are saying that we may have foreclosures and opportunities coming up next year because of high unemployment that Greg described today. What are your thoughts? Have you guys changed your mind with the discussion and the new data as of today?
So I don't ever remember, and I never would say the housing market will never have an issue because of low interest rates. What we have talked about is the housing market is very strong, low inventory, in demand, and there's a lot of people buying houses right now from a retail standpoint because the interest rates are at all-time lows. Correct. So that doesn't mean that we'll never have a problem. It just means that right now that's what's driving the demand. That's why prices are inflated. It's all relative. When interest rates were higher, house values were down. As interest rates go down, house values go up. Demand goes up. So that's all we're talking about there. As far as the health of the housing market, one of the things I do think is that you're, from a retail standpoint, buying at the top of the market now, you're not going to generally see the type of appreciation that you have seen in the last 30 years. From the standpoint of when you and I grew up and our parents would buy a house, the exponential appreciation of real estate at the single family home level, I don't think we're going to see that over the next 20 or 30 years. So
Yeah.
if the average house price right now is $300,000, I don't see that being worth $3 million,
Yeah. No.
10 or 20 years from now.
Yeah.
But that has happened. I mean,
Yeah.
that $300,000 house used to be, 30,000, 40,
sure.
100,000,
sure.
not even, 15, 20 years ago. So
sure.
I don't think we're going to see that, so that's when I talk about, a cap on values of exponential appreciation over the long term. I don't see that. And I know one of the viewers commented on something like that in a previous episode that we did, was they didn't quite understand that concept of what we were talking about. Now, if you're buying under, I guess the thing I said was back then, that single family homes aren't the best investment. Owner occupied homes compared to investing in other things. Now, if you buy under market value, a distressed asset, you fix it and rehab it and all that, then you can drive equity and you can have a little bit of a spread there. But if you buy at the top of the market, nice house at peak market value right now, the chances of you seeing any appreciation anytime soon just are not good. Now you will get principal pay down, things like that. So you'll build equity that way. But, like I said, I don't think the medium house of 300, whatever it is now, 400,000 is going to be 4 million in 20 years.
Yeah. So this is sort of what I think about it, just to kind of, because again, we have our own opinions and sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. So first off, a house today, 400 grand will not be 4 million in a decade. Not going to happen. But that said, let's talk about next year, because there is a big talk today about what is true unemployment. I mean, that was the title of our video, right? Is true unemployment 30% when you do all inclusive? It's somewhere between 8 and 30. I don't know what it is. It's somewhere between that. But what I think is really going on today is what is really happening in the real estate market, the owner-occupied real estate market, is we are seeing urban flight. We are seeing the move to the suburbs. And that is a trend that is new, and it will go on for 18 months, right? Because the first wave goes, and then they have a good time, and then the second wave goes, and then, oh my God, if we have a second thing in the fall. And I mean, this is an investable trend, in my opinion. But that has two sides. There's a part of the country that will lose people. Values will come down. So I want to be very clear with folks. If you're investing in New York and San Francisco, it is about to be cheaper, both rent and price. But if you're going to the suburbs, I believe for the next 18 months, you're going to see double-digit increase. It'll go up 10%. Supply, demand says it's going to go up, plus interest rates are low. And people don't buy on price, they buy on mortgage payment. And when you have mortgage payments that used to be 4, and then they're 3.5, and then they're 3, and then they're 2 3/4, values go up, right? So I think we are going to see prices go up, but I do. And then the other thing is, how bad is forbearance and foreclosures going to get? This is unknown. I believe, again, in most suburbs, any supply that comes on from those forbearances ending in March, April, or May of next year will be absorbed very quickly. And again, they come on intermittently. What happened in 07, 08 is there were waves. I remember looking at the market every Monday and seeing this week's wave of foreclosures. The banks have learned the lesson. They are not repeating the mistakes. They work with people early. They did real loans, 30-year, not these 2 and 28s. And they are not going to do wave of foreclosures. They will let them come on intermittently so there's not total price destruction across their portfolio. So I think in most of the country, real estate goes up the next 18 months. And I do not see the wave of foreclosures dampening or raising supply to dampen demand, unless you're in New York or San Francisco. I could see real pain. Like if you bought a condo in San Francisco for $1.8 million and, half the building is empty, you're going to see some price destruction and things like that. So that's what I'm seeing next year. Any thoughts on what I said?
Yeah. And I just had some conversations on that yesterday. So, a lot of it is hyper-local. So like you said, little pockets, little pockets here and there. So let's take Manhattan, for instance, so I don't know, in New York City, they're saying there's 15,000 vacant condos and apartments right now. Yeah. Now there's 8 million people in New York. Okay. I don't know how many apartments and all that. So I don't know what percentage that represents, but that's still a big number. And there's brand new product at Hudson Yards where there's millions of square feet of office space and residential that's vacant, things like that. So the big difference between now and 2009 is there is forbearance. In
Yes.
2009, there was no forbearance.
Oh,
There's a
yeah.
big difference between forbearance and foreclosure. Forbearance is just a free pass. Hey, don't worry about your mortgage right now. We'll figure it out in, 6 months. So that's going to be
It
in
is the
place.
pause button. It is a pause button.
It's a pause button. So big difference. And that's going to be in place minimum through the end of the year. Once we get into next year, then we'll see the real impact and effect of that.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, lenders are incentivized to work those loans out and help people stay in their houses. The lenders do not want to go through what happened in 2009.
They are
And
not
that was
going to do that again.
millions.
Yes.
And that was millions upon millions of homeowners, not a few 100,000.
Oh, millions.
What's going on right now is a very small number compared to 2009. And again, there was no forbearance. There was no forgiveness back in 2009. It was cutthroat, and the banks were vicious with people, commercial and residential.
Yeah.
This time is going to be very different.
Very different.
So that's number one. Number two, when you look at a city like New York, the question is, like you said, what's really interesting is a few 100,000 people, even 1 million leaving New York, that's not going to make a dent. There's 8 million people. It's not going to make a dent to New York. It is going to make a huge dent to where they're going. Tennessee,
exactly.
Nashville, Las Vegas, Arizona, whatever the hot spots in Arizona are, Florida. Yeah. So you get 100,000 people going to Nashville, Tennessee. That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's driving demand in these other markets. And I have friends that live in New Jersey that, Jason and Peely University, they're moving to Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And same reason, they're like, man, we can sell this house here and get twice the house and land and everything there. And
their life, better quality of life. Yeah.
A better quality of life in terms of traffic and commuting and just everything in general.
Family, they're a great couple.
Yeah. So it's making a huge impact in these areas, but in San Francisco, it might make an impact, in certain neighborhoods where people are leaving, but it's in that neighborhood. There's other boroughs of the city that are still thriving, still doing well. The suburbs are, thriving and doing well. And those prices are still jacked up because people wanted to leave the city to go to the immediate suburbs first.
Yes.
When that ran out, then they started looking out of state. And then the tax situation and, the tax situation, politics, all that stuff makes a bigger, has a bigger role in people's decisions of where they're going to go from a state to state standpoint. So, I think the social unrest and the political climate is more driving a lot of people out of some of these areas than even, just the COVID situation. People are worried. I mean, they're getting harassed on the streets in New York trying to eat lunch.
I saw that. Crazy.
And I don't mean just harassed. I mean attacked. In San Francisco, same thing. So it's getting to where people don't feel safe just even walking outside their own front door where they didn't think twice about it even 4 months ago.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
So that's a big issue there. So it's going to be these little pockets, and these cities are big. There's a lot of people. So what was the second half of that question? It was about that you just read.
Basically, what are you seeing in 2021? Will forbearance and foreclosures lead to price destruction?
Yeah, no, not at all. Some not at all, because there is no foreclosure on the books right now at all. Not even an issue. And forbearance is just, a pause button.
I totally agree with that. Again, people are looking today, and everybody remembers the last crisis, and they're translating what happened in 2008. Folks, the banks are handling this different. It's not going to happen.
Well, the other thing too is a lot of the people that are unemployed right now, the retail workers, restaurant, hospitality,
renters,
they're not homeowners.
Yeah, they're
renters.
Yeah.
So it does have an impact and effect on where they live. But again, that's spread out over a big area in terms of the geographics and demographics of that renter. But most of the people that are unemployed right now, unfortunately, are renters versus homeowners. Fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it.
Yep. This is reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess to close on this kind of going deeper subject, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but this is how I summarize our conversations. We still think the rest of 2020 there's more pain to be had. There'll be some more events that we just have to watch, but we are both pretty optimistic about opportunities in 2021. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And, the big key again for everything is treatment. So vaccine's one thing, that's great, but you need to take the fact that somebody can end up on a ventilator or die from COVID off the table. That's where the real transformation happens. A lot of people aren't going to take that vaccine, but when they know, hey, I can go out, if I get sick, I'm not going to be on a ventilator and I'm not going to die, then we're on a path to recovery.
Exactly. And again, I still think, we did a video, I think 3 or 4 ago, the year of the entrepreneur, 2021. I still think there's going to be some people that are in businesses that are going to close. It is going to suck. It is going to hurt. Yes. We will get through this. I really,
that'll create opportunities. Other people will step in,
exactly.
and rework that business. Those people will go to work somewhere else. Hopefully the business owners will be able to recover and they'll be able to come back. The big problem there is, and maybe there's some relief down the road. So here's the big problem with that is these business owners that are closing with debt.
Yeah.
That's impacting their ability to move forward in the future.
True.
So what the government needs to be talking about is what do we do with these people, that could not make it through. The government shut me down. I lost my business. I'm in debt. How can I move forward? Because now I can't go borrow money. I can't get an SBA loan. I cannot reopen another business somewhere else, much less keep my own open. So there's going to be a big segment of the economy there that's going to be hurt from a financial standpoint because of the debt that they've taken on and they've lost, through this cycle of being shut down. So their only choice is they're going to have to go to work so that, they will still be able to get a job and produce income, but they're going to have that debt that's going to hold back real recovery for a large portion of the market. And that's significant. That's a big number.
And we want those people because, again, we are a country that small business, medium business, they employ a lot of people. And
so that's where I think the federal government needs to step in and pay all those debts off from that situation and mandate that the credit records are not harmed for those individuals and just take that, just like they did for Wall Street and these defunct corporations and bought their corporate debt. They need to buy the corporate debt of these local businesses and erase their credit records so that they can move forward.
Have you heard anybody talk about
whole, but
have you heard anybody talk about it?
Yeah, there's a few. Marie DiMartino Booth is a good one. She's an economist. She used to be with the Fed in Texas.
I've seen her. She's very good. Yes.
Yeah, so she talks a lot about it. I haven't seen anybody a few people in Congress are talking about it, but she's making a big stink about it. Thank goodness. But that's something that needs to be addressed because, if you're Walmart, you can be going bankrupt and sell bonds.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? If you're, Michael's restaurant on the corner in San Francisco and you're out of business, you can't sell bonds.
No.
You need to, they need to address that somehow. And they tried to do it through the SBA loan program, but in PPP, but that doesn't make you whole. It doesn't take the debt burden off you, and it doesn't replace the income that you've lost that you otherwise would have had if you weren't forced to shut down. So that's a big conversation that needs to happen.
Oh, very cool. Well, we'll end it there. I appreciate you giving me some time. And again, we'll talk on Monday.
Yeah, man. Sounds good.
Take care.
All right, Michael. Have a good weekend.